After a month of a cold war with the rich circle's prince, Henry, explosive news suddenly spread through the circle. He had successfully proposed. Reporters couldn't wait to congratulate me. At the time, I had just finished my tour, utterly exhausted. Facing the camera, I smiled calmly. Mr. Zhao's engagement has nothing to do with me. Here, I sincerely wish Mr. Zhao a happy engagement. On TV, the moment my words ended, Henry crushed the glass in his hand, blood streaming down instantly. Chapter 1. After the last show of the tour ended, I returned backstage to grab my phone. As soon as I powered it on, countless messages poured in. Veronica. Henry proposed to Laura. Laura has already accepted. I can't believe that after all these years, they still ended up together. Veronica. Is it really over between you and Henry? Clutching my phone, I sat down on the sofa, feeling a bit weary. Henry and I had been in a cold war for a full month. In the past, it was always me who backed down. But this time, because of the tour, I was overwhelmed with work, unable to find time to contact him. Yet in just one short month, Henry proposed to his unforgettable first love, Laura. Chapter 2. I had no desire to reply to those messages. After a brief rest, I had to go out and face the media. As soon as I stepped out, all the reporters swarmed over. They held up their microphones, eager to ask questions. Miss Su, when did Mr. Zhao propose to you? How long before you two hold the wedding? Will the wedding be held abroad or domestically? Miss Su, congratulations on your engagement to Mr. Zhao. In the midst of the chaos, I instead found a sense of calm. I looked into the camera, my eyes devoid of any emotion. After a moment, I smiled and spoke. Mr. Zhao's engagement has nothing to do with me. Taking this opportunity, I sincerely wish Mr. Zhao a happy engagement. Chapter 3. On TV. The moment my words ended, the glass in Henry's hand suddenly shattered, blood instantly streaming down. Laura screamed in fright. Call a doctor. Call an ambulance. Laura clutched his hand, her eyes red with worry. Get out. Henry's voice was icy as he flung Laura's hand away. Henry. Laura was stunned. Then tears of embarrassment began to fall. Everyone out. Henry slowly lifted his gaze, his cold eyes sweeping over everyone. Don't make me say it a third time. Laura held back her tears, not daring to say anything more, and left with the others. Henry opened his bloody palm. The engagement ring on his left hand was also covered in blood. With an expressionless face, he took it off and casually tossed it into the trash can. Chapter 4. A month later, I was preparing for a performance when the troupe leader suddenly called me into the office. The lead dancer position, which had always been mine, was now given to Luciana, someone I had never gotten along with. Then, the landlord of my rented apartment suddenly broke the lease, demanding that I move out within 2 days. After breaking up with Henry, it felt like everything had gone wrong for me, as if I were in a perpetual state of misfortune. When I lost my right to perform once again, Henry suddenly called me. Veronica, do you still want to keep dancing? Chapter 5. After rushing to the address Henry had given me, the waiter led me to the elevator and upstairs. The moment I opened the door, Henry's voice came through. If she bows her head and begs me, I wouldn't mind keeping her, just like keeping a pet canary. The moment he finished speaking, he saw me, but his expression remained composed, which made my pale face seem all the more ridiculous. Henry, was it you? He nodded slightly, tapping the cigarette between his fingers. Why? Why else? Because I'm not done playing. Henry chuckled. Veronica, even if we break up, it should be when I'm tired of you. Chapter 6. I couldn't continue living in my apartment, so I moved into a hotel for the time being. The troupe continued to refuse me the chance to perform, but for every show, I stubbornly dressed up and waited backstage. At first, Luciana mocked me openly, but eventually, she couldn't even be bothered. While everyone took their bows on stage, I stood silently in the shadows below, dressed in my practice clothes. That day, I saw Luciana come off the stage and throw herself into a man's arms like a fledgling bird returning to its nest. Only then did I notice that Henry had come. Luciana leaned into his embrace, pouting as Henry touched her face, whispering something in her ear. Luciana looked a bit dissatisfied but still let go and turned to leave. Henry walked up to me. Veronica, do you regret it? Look, whoever I want to support can make it to the top in no time. Of course, my feelings for you are different. If you come back, the lead position in the troupe will still be yours. And if I say no, you're already engaged. Henry, Veronica, will never be the other woman. Henry laughed. He looked at me like a disobedient child, gazing down from above. Do you really think you can perform on stage again? Anywhere in the world? If I say no? Henry leaned in, just like when we were in love, and hugged me. He coaxed. Be good. I'll give you one night to think about it. Call me tomorrow. Chapter 7. Back in school, any rich second-generation kid in the troupe could nearly push me to the brink of depression and suicide, let alone Henry, the famous prince of Beijing's elite circle. Of course, I believed that he could make it impossible for me to perform for the rest of my life, but the thought of not being able to dance anymore was worse than death. Returning to the dressing room, feeling depressed, I downed 2 bottles of alcohol. By the time I stumbled out drunk, there was hardly anyone left. As I passed the stage, I suddenly stopped. Chapter 8. Benjamin was dressed in a black business suit, with his assistant holding his coat half a step behind him. The cigarette between his fingers had built up a long trail of ash. He forgot to flick it off, just quietly watching the slender figure twirling on the stage, until finally, that figure collapsed in exhaustion. Then, he heard soft sobs. Wait outside for me, Benjamin said. Taking his coat from his assistant, he walked onto the stage. By the time I heard footsteps, Benjamin was already in front of me. I looked up, tears blurring my vision. Mr. Chan? The Chan and Zhao families weren't on good terms. Benjamin and Henry had never interacted in private. I knew him from a party, where Henry had taken me to offer a toast. After all, people like them maintained a facade of harmony. Henry had once said that Benjamin was a tough character. Money, power, women, none of it worked on him. People in the circle often wondered who could pluck this unattainable flower. Benjamin bent down slightly and draped his coat over my shoulders. What happened? Why did you drink so much? I clutched the collar and stood up, about to shake my head when a thought flashed through my mind. I was helpless against Henry. But what about Benjamin? The Chan family was far more influential than the Zhao family. But why would Benjamin turn against Henry for me? Lost in thought, he handed me a tissue. Wipe your tears first. I took the tissue but didn't move, letting the tears fall one by one to the ground. Did you fight with Henry? We broke up. Benjamin raised an eyebrow, glancing at me impassively. Chapter 9. Shall I take you home? I didn't refuse Benjamin's offer. Where are you staying? I gave the name of the hotel. Why a hotel? The landlord kicked me out. Still looking for a place. Benjamin adjusted the prayer beads on his wrist. Not far from here. I have an empty apartment. You can stay there temporarily. I slowly lifted my slightly reddened eyes, looking at the man before me. The dim light in the car made it hard to see clearly, yet this man was still strikingly handsome. My heart suddenly pounded. Wouldn't that be troublesome for you? Not at all. Midway through the ride, I saw Luciana's post on social media. Rehearsal. Performance. Tired but very fulfilled. See you tomorrow night. Thank you to my dear for the beautiful flowers. The picture showed a huge bouquet, with a card signed simply Zhao. Expressionless, I closed the app and looked at the man beside me. Mr. Chan, would you mind taking a photo with me? A photo? I opened the camera on my phone and switched to the front camera. Like this. Could you come a little closer? Benjamin leaned in slightly, his hair brushing against my forehead. I adjusted our poses until I was almost pressed against his face, making a peace sign. As I snapped the photo, Benjamin's hand rested on the top of my head. Benjamin, you're quite the charmer. Who said you were hard to deal with? I zoomed in on the photo. Tipsy Veronica looked beautiful. Benjamin still appeared a bit aloof, but his looks were impeccable. And that head pat from a mature man, it was heart-melting. I was very pleased. Can I post this on my social media? Benjamin nodded. As you wish. I immediately posted it. A charming night. So beautiful. The post included a few landscape shots and the photo of us together. As soon as I posted it, I received a notification. I quickly opened it. BJ, truly beautiful. The next second, my inbox exploded with messages. Chapter 10. I didn't have time to look at those messages. Feeling a bit nervous, I asked him, "Aren't you afraid of being misunderstood?" Misunderstood how? This photo, it's pretty intimate. Who knows what people might think if they see it? Benjamin suddenly looked at me. Afraid Henry will see it? I shook my head vigorously. No, it has nothing to do with him. I'm just worried about causing trouble for you. It's no trouble. Benjamin didn't answer but instead gestured at my phone. Want to check your messages? The comments under that post had already gone wild. Wow, Veronica. If I'm not mistaken, the guy next to you is Benjamin? No way. Veronica, did you put a spell on him? That's Benjamin. How could he take such an intimate photo with a woman, even patting her head? Veronica, photoshopping isn't cool. No need to put yourself with someone like him just to one-up me. This one was from Luciana. I asked a friend to check. It's definitely not photoshopped. No signs of editing at all. Why so bitter? He's human, not a saint. As long as someone is human, they will break their vows at some point, right? To the one saying it's photoshopped. Did you see the starlit car roof? Only 10 of those worldwide. Just one in Beijing. You can easily find out who owns it. Guys, didn't the man himself comment first thing? How could it be fake? I could rename myself BJ and claim to be Benjamin too, right? Luciana snarked again. Someone quickly replied to her. Sorry, lady. My bro knows some big shots. He just asked around. And yes, it's really him. The comment section was a complete mess. Chapter 11. My head hurt even more. Benjamin's phone seemed to be constantly buzzing too. It seemed I had really caused trouble for him. From what I remembered, Benjamin was different from Henry. He was extremely low-key. But now, I had pushed him into the spotlight. Should I change the privacy settings for that post? Benjamin lowered his gaze slightly, his slender fingers playing with the prayer beads on his wrist. Veronica. He suddenly called my name. I was startled, instinctively looking at him. The light flickered inside the car, and I couldn't quite see the emotions in his eyes. I told you, it's no trouble. His deep voice resonated, like an electric current passing through my heart. There's a certain subtle magnetism between men and women. Like at this moment, I could acutely sense that Benjamin seemed to have some feelings for me. People in the circle often described him with a few words. Low-key, aloof, hard to deal with, especially distant from women. All these years, I had never heard of him having any romantic scandals. My heart was pounding faster and faster. Back in school, when I was bullied to the point of depression and wanted to die, it was Henry who saved me. I truly thought he was the one for me, for life. But now, he was engaged to his well-matched first love. Between him and me, it was completely over. But I knew his nature. Someone like him, born into privilege, utterly spoiled, the prince of the elite circle, he got everything he wanted. Now that I had ended things with him, he, with all his pride, would never get over it. If I didn't love dancing so much, if I hadn't been trampled to the ground, almost to death, maybe I'd give up. I could leave Beijing, change careers, and still survive. But to me, dancing was more important than my life. My fingers trembled slightly. Chapter 12. After picking up my luggage from the hotel, I went to the apartment Benjamin had mentioned. He helped me carry the suitcase upstairs. As he opened the door, I asked softly, "Would you like to come in for some tea?" Benjamin placed the suitcase on the carpet by the entrance. He glanced at his watch. "It's late. Get some rest." I was taken aback. I stared at him, dumbfounded. Benjamin chuckled, raising his hand to brush the stray hair from my forehead. "Veronica, call me tomorrow after you've sobered up." With that, he turned and left. It wasn't until the door locked behind me that I snapped out of my shame. Benjamin. It seemed he wasn't interested at all. I had completely misread the situation. Chapter 13. The next day, I woke up close to noon. My phone was full of missed calls and messages. Before I could even check them, another call came in. Accidentally, I answered it, and Henry's furious voice came through. Veronica, where are you now? Don't think just because I spoil you. You can do whatever you want. Henry. The moment I spoke, I realized my voice was hoarse. What's wrong with your voice? Where are you? Don't tell me you're really with Benjamin. Yes, I'm at Benjamin's place right now. I clutched my phone, walked to the window, and pulled back the curtain. This place is close to the dance troupe. I like it very much. What do you mean? Veronica, I'm warning you. If you're done playing around, come back down the steps I gave you. Henry, when you got engaged to Laura, you should have known that you and I were over. An engagement means nothing. It means everything. Even if I marry her, I can still give you whatever you want. I don't need anything from you anymore. Veronica, you'd better think this through. I've already thought it through. Do you really think being with Benjamin will solve all your problems? Henry sneered. I don't get along with him, and you know exactly why he's with you. That's my own business. Veronica, don't come crying to me if he plays with you and then kicks you aside. Henry's voice softened. Come back, and I'll let bygones be bygones. You love dancing, right? I'll buy the theater for you, and from now on, you'll be the lead in every show. Henry, go support Luciana. I laughed. Stop calling me with different numbers if you're not tired. I am from blocking them. With that, I hung up and blocked his number again. Chapter 14. After washing up, I got another call from the dance company. Veronica, come in today to handle your resignation. I wasn't really surprised. Henry could only use this to try and control me now. I'll be right there. Even though I hung up, I still felt a bit upset. In my senior year, I had made it into one of the best dance theaters in Beijing. Half a year in, I became the lead dancer. I got here through almost 20 years of hard work, but losing it all, that only took a single sentence from someone else. When I got to the company, Luciana and the others were rehearsing. I stood outside the door, momentarily lost in thought. If I bowed my head, there was still room for negotiation. But should I become someone's lover? A canary in a gilded cage? My mother would probably come back from her grave just to strangle me. When the resignation was done and I left the company, I couldn't hold it together anymore and cried behind the flower bed. The director had been very clear. Once I signed the resignation, no dance company or theater in Beijing would hire me again. My phone kept ringing. I didn't want to look or answer. When I finally stopped crying, I carried my box to the roadside, ready to call a cab home. Suddenly, a message came through on WeChat. BJ, Veronica, answer the phone. The phone rang again. I hesitated for a moment but picked up. Mr. Chan, what's up? Are you out? I just went to the company. My voice was still thick with tears. Have you been crying? It's nothing. Where are you now? Just left the company. About to get a cab. Stay there. Don't move. I'm coming over. Mr. Chan, we'll talk when I see you. Benjamin hung up. Chapter 15. He arrived quickly. When the car stopped in front of me, I was sitting on the side of the road, staring blankly, like a lost child. Benjamin's driver put my box in the trunk. He walked over and held out his hand to me. I looked up at him, my eyes swollen from crying. I looked so pitiful. Get in the car. I don't need your help. I turned away, tears streaming down my face. He never meant anything by it. So why make me misunderstand and embarrass myself? Benjamin didn't say a word, but I heard a soft sigh. Veronica. He called my name again. I want to help you, but you rejected me last night, because I don't see you as just any girl. I froze for a moment. Then strangely enough, my heart softened because of that one sentence. Chapter 16. Benjamin took me to get something to eat. After I had calmed down a bit, he had someone bring me a few documents. Look over the information on these dance companies and theaters. I'm not familiar with dance, but you are the expert. So decide where you want to go. Of course, I won't give you special treatment. Whether you get in or not will depend on your own abilities. I'll just make sure no one tries to interfere and guarantee absolute fairness in the exam. I gripped the papers tightly in my hand. The determination not to give up suddenly flared up inside me. I had confidence that as long as the exam was fair, I wouldn't be disappointed by the result. But this surprise came so suddenly. I still couldn't quite believe it. Benjamin, can I really? There's nothing that can't be done in this world, as long as you're willing to work for it. I suddenly stood up and threw my arms around him. Benjamin, thank you. Chapter 17. I started practicing like crazy. I spent almost all my spare time in the rehearsal room. The exam was coming up fast. Though I was confident, this time I felt a lot of pressure. After all, no matter what, I couldn't let Benjamin lose face. When Benjamin came to pick me up, I had just changed out of my practice clothes. I was tending to the wounds on my feet. The moment he arrived, I instinctively tried to hide my feet. Dancers' feet are always covered in scars. Henry used to hate the fact that my feet were deformed and scarred. He often got mad at me because of dancing. If I had to practice, rehearse, or perform, it meant I couldn't spend time with him. Thinking back now, in Henry's eyes, I was just a canary. Canaries didn't need to work hard for a career. They just needed to look pretty and make their owner happy. Are you hurt? Benjamin knelt down and naturally took hold of my ankle. No, don't look. It's ugly. Chapter 18. Benjamin glanced up at me. He took the cotton swab from my hand. Let me help you. My big toes were visibly twisted. 2 of my toenails were missing. I found them ugly myself. As Benjamin applied iodine, I instinctively pulled my foot away. Don't move. It'll be over soon. He held my foot firmly and put a bandage on the wound. It hurts, doesn't it? I'm used to it. It must have hurt a lot when the nails came off. His voice was soft, and when he looked at me, I could see the concern in his eyes. I froze, and suddenly my nose felt sore. Tears fell, and Benjamin pulled me into his arms. I cried for a long time in his embrace. When I finally stopped, I didn't lift my head, but I gripped his hand tightly. Benjamin, stay with me tonight. He didn't reply. After a moment, he tilted my chin up. Veronica. He called my name again. Look at me and say it again. I had never seen Benjamin like this. Beneath his usual calm demeanor, there was a forceful determination. His fingers tightened slightly on my chin. It hurt, and I tried to push him away. But suddenly he pressed me against the mirrored wall, leaning down to kiss me deeply. Chapter 19. In the end, Benjamin carried me out of the rehearsal room. His shirt was wrinkled. It was from when I tugged at it, gasping for air as he kissed me. When we got to the car and saw the driver, I felt a bit awkward, but Benjamin looked unfazed. Once we were seated, I sneaked a glance at him there. Benjamin didn't look at me but raised his hand to cover my eyes. Don't stare. Why not? I muttered softly. If you don't want me to see, then don't let it be visible. Benjamin let out a soft, amused laugh. In the dimly lit car, a smile slowly crept onto my face too. Chapter 20. Benjamin usually looked tall and slender, but I hadn't expected that he was actually more solidly built than I imagined. I poked his abs, my face feeling a little hot. Nice body, I said, pretending to be casual, but I was incredibly nervous. I thought I might feel some resistance or rejection, but when he came out of the bathroom and casually asked me to dry his hair, I suddenly relaxed. Veronica. When he bent down to kiss me, it was the first time he called me so intimately. I closed my eyes and wrapped my arms loosely around his neck. Benjamin, I just remembered. There's something I haven't asked you yet. Go ahead. From what I've heard, you haven't had a girlfriend or been engaged before. I looked at him through the hazy light. You won't suddenly have a fiancé pop up or get engaged out of the blue, will you? No. Then, if you plan to get engaged or married in the future, let me know in advance, okay? Benjamin kissed my forehead. Don't overthink it. Promise me. He raised his hand, his fingers brushing lightly over my brow and eyes. After a long while, he finally spoke. All right. I felt a moment of relief, but after that relief, an inexplicable sense of melancholy emerged. Deep down, it seemed I didn't want to hear him say all right. Chapter 21. I lay on his shoulder, drowsy as he carried me to the bathroom. During the shower, I was too tired to keep my eyes open, practically hanging off of him. Benjamin, tomorrow, the day after, and the day after that. I need to abstain. The day after that. I have an exam, and I need to conserve my energy. My legs felt weak now. Forget dancing. I could barely walk without stumbling. Isn't one day of rest enough? I forced my eyes open and glared at him. No way. Ridiculous. Doesn't he know how intimidating he is? Back in bed. I touched the prayer beads on his wrist. Liar. Liar? Wearing these beads is totally misleading. When I first met you, I thought you were really someone pure and abstinent. No matter how pure, people still have emotions and desires. I still remember the way you looked at me then. What kind of look? Cold. Indifferent. Barely glanced at me, and then looked away. You didn't look at me again all night. I yawned tiredly as I spoke. Before he could reply, I had already fallen asleep, holding onto his prayer beads. That night was indeed like that. He didn't give Veronica a second look. Because back then, she was still Henry's girlfriend. Because when he first saw her, his heart moved just a little. But he wasn't into coveting someone else's girlfriend. Even if that person had always been at odds with him, he didn't want to drag innocent girls into a fight between men. They shouldn't be toys or bargaining chips. They deserved respect and care. So, he restrained himself and didn't look at her again, until later at the theater. He watched the entire performance, but she never appeared on stage. He felt uneasy and waited a little longer after the audience had left. Then, he saw her dancing alone on stage. Finally, she sank down and cried in despair. He couldn't control himself and walked toward her, step by step, as he wished. Chapter 22. For the exam. I chose the most challenging Korean dance. An industry master once said that Korean dance was one of the most difficult styles. She didn't recommend young dancers choose it for competitions or important exams. Our dance instructor used to joke, if you dance Korean style well, you're a master. If you don't, you look like an auntie. Honestly, I was torn. Throughout my dance career, although I had performed Korean dance on stage, I always felt like I was missing something. But this time was different. There was a fire inside me, an energy pushing me forward. During practice, I could keenly sense that this energy might lead me to a breakthrough. Sure enough, during the exam, I gave an almost flawless performance. When the music stopped, even a few of the judges were applauding for me. As I walked off stage, a girl grabbed me, her voice full of excitement. Hey, when you were dancing up there, I could really feel your intensity. You're amazing. Thank you. And good luck with your exam too. I was in high spirits. All the high-pressure training and exhaustion of the past few days vanished instantly. After changing clothes, I got a call from Benjamin. Benjamin. I ran forward, into the dazzling sunlight. At that moment, it felt like the invisible shackles on me were completely lifted. The Veronica who was once envied for her hard work and determination. Who was bullied to the point of wanting to die. Who used self-harm to cope with depression, was reborn as she ran into the sunlight. I threw myself into Benjamin's arms, holding him tightly. Looks like we should celebrate early, he said. He caught me steadily, his smile faint but gentle. Let's go. I'll take you out for a fancy dinner tonight. Chapter 23. I originally thought the dinner that night would just be me and him, but I didn't expect that he would invite so many people. When the waiter opened the door to the private room, Benjamin held my hand. Everyone inside quickly stood up and came over. Brother Benjamin. Sister-in-law. Hello, sister-in-law. We finally get to see your true face. No wonder Brother Benjamin kept you such a secret. You're too beautiful. I felt a little uneasy and couldn't help but glance at Benjamin. The circle in Beijing is big but also small. Benjamin and Henry had some mutual friends. These people had seen me with Henry before. Now, here I was standing with Benjamin. Who knew what they would think behind closed doors? Everyone put out your cigarettes, Benjamin said. Immediately, everyone in the room extinguished their cigarettes. After Benjamin seated me, the others followed and sat down. Just then, Benjamin's assistant rushed in. He glanced at me before lowering his voice to speak. Mr. Chan, Mr. Zhao is here. He's downstairs now, insisting on coming up, and our people can't hold him back. I instinctively pressed my lips together. Things had been calm these past few days. I was almost starting to forget that Henry was still a ticking time bomb. Let him come up. No need to stop him, Benjamin said, perfectly composed. Sweat gathered on my hands. Resting on my knees, Benjamin squeezed my fingers, his grip firm, as if to reassure me. It only took a couple of minutes after the assistant left, before Henry pushed the door to the private room open. Chapter 24. He had clearly been drinking, the smell of alcohol heavy on him. The moment he opened the door, his eyes skipped over everyone else and landed right on me. Veronica. Henry strode right over, reaching out to grab me. Benjamin lifted his hand to block him, his voice low and icy. Henry, mind your status. What status? Henry looked at Benjamin, sneering coldly. Benjamin, did you mind your status when you pursued my woman? Your woman? Benjamin shielded me behind him, speaking slowly. As far as I know, Mr. Zhao, your fiancé's last name is Li. She's the eldest daughter of the Li family. So what? Henry's eyes were bloodshot. Laura is my fiancée, but Veronica is also my woman. Whether she is or isn't, it's not up to you. Benjamin, are you really going to go head-to-head with me? Henry laughed contemptuously but with a hint of cruelty. His gaze shifted from Benjamin to me. When she was with me, she was still a student, still pure, out of all the clean girls you could have. You're hung up on someone I've already. Henry couldn't finish his sentence. With a chorus of gasps, Benjamin grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Henry tried to struggle, but Benjamin's hand was firmly on his throat. I saw the veins bulging on the back of Benjamin's hand. One by one, they were stark and unsettling. His exposed forearm muscles, with his sleeves rolled up, were tense to the extreme. Henry's face turned a sickly shade of purple. Someone tried to intervene, but was held back. Henry's face grew darker and darker, until someone finally spoke to me in a small voice. Sister-in-law, you should say something to Brother Benjamin, otherwise Henry's going to pass out. I slowly let out a breath, wiping away the tears welling in my eyes. Henry stared at me desperately, shaking his head with all his might, but I still walked over. I pulled on Benjamin's sleeve, my voice trembling as I softly pleaded. Benjamin, let him go. Don't make this worse. Chapter 25. That night, the dinner ended in chaos. Henry had to be helped out by several waiters. Benjamin's mood was dark, and he drank several glasses of alcohol in a row. On the way home, he asked the driver to stop the car, right there in the back seat. He kissed me, forcefully, almost roughly, several times. He was too harsh, but I endured it without a word. I knew he was upset. Henry's words had been too ugly. Everyone present had heard them. For someone like Benjamin, a favored son of heaven, how could he not care about his dignity? Veronica, Benjamin suddenly cupped my face, forcing me to look at him. Did you feel sorry for him? I was confused. What are you talking about? I said. Did you feel sorry for him back there? Is that it? I quickly shook my head. No. It's not that. I only stopped you because I didn't want you to make things worse because of me. He didn't seem satisfied with my explanation. Benjamin looked at me, his eyes filled with desire but also a coldness. Benjamin. He wouldn't let me speak. The force of his kiss increased suddenly. Tears streamed from my eyes instantly. Benjamin. I couldn't hold back my feelings any longer, and tears I'd been holding in started to flow. If you're unhappy, I choked on my sobs. If you think I've embarrassed you, I tried to push him away, gripping his hands. Then maybe you shouldn't be with me. We could just end this. Veronica, don't even think about it. He grabbed my face again, kissing me even harder. It hurts. Benjamin, you're such a jerk. I tried to bite him, but he grabbed my waist and flipped me so I was straddling his lap. Benjamin, I screamed, startled. He wrapped an arm around my waist and brushed the hair away from my temple with the other. He bit my earlobe lightly, his voice hoarse in my ear. Veronica, I won't let you think about any other man. No one. Chapter 26. A week later, I smoothly joined my new dance company. 2 weeks later, I began performing in dance productions, playing the third female lead. The The performance was a success, and that night the company and organizers held a celebration. Benjamin was on a business trip in the UK, so he couldn't attend, but he sent his assistant with lots and lots of flowers. The entire theater entrance was practically turned into a sea of flowers. At the celebration, I saw Henry's fiancée, Laura. Beside her stood an elegant lady and a very beautiful, gentle young woman. For some reason, Laura looked a bit haggard. Her eyes were red and swollen, as if she'd been crying. "Miss Sue." Laura was the first to greet me. "Miss Lee." I nodded politely. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, lingering at my waist for a moment. Then she smiled and spoke to the lady beside her. "Aunt Chan, look. This is Miss Veronica Sue, the dancer. She's beautiful, with such a great figure. Doesn't she just have that unique air about her?" Mrs. Chan immediately looked at me. Her gaze was sharp, with an air of caution and scrutiny. It made me feel uncomfortable for no reason. "You're Veronica?" Mrs. Chan looked me up and down before speaking. Her voice was still gentle. I nodded. "Hello, Mrs. Chan." She didn't reply, just nodded slightly before leaving with the young woman beside her. Laura chuckled lightly. Once they were gone, she spoke to me in a low voice. "Veronica, do you think the wealthy are easy to marry into? With your background, you'll never marry into the Chan family, not even in your next life." I picked up a glass of wine and took a small sip. For some reason, I felt a little choked up inside. "Did you see the girl next to Mrs. Chan? Amelia from the Liu family, the future daughter-in-law chosen by the Chan family." Laura looked at me with malicious intent. "Benjamin knows it too." Chapter 27. I put down my wine glass and looked at Laura. "Miss Lee, if you have something to say, just say it." "Veronica, I'm just telling you, neither Henry nor Benjamin are within your reach. You should give up early." "Miss Lee, you don't need to warn me. I never wanted to marry Henry, and now, I don't want to marry Benjamin either." "You didn't want to marry him, but you haunted Henry, making him lose his mind." Laura glared at me hatefully. "He insists on breaking off our engagement now. Do you know that, Veronica?" I was genuinely surprised. Laura was Henry's first love. She was different from all his other girlfriends. "I'm sorry. I truly didn't know. After we broke up, I never contacted him." "It's because you found someone new so quickly that Henry can't let you go." Laura's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. "Veronica, why can you let go so easily? Why can't you cling to him like his exes did? If you'd clung to him, he would have gotten bored by now. But you moved on so quickly and ended up with Benjamin. So now he's even more unwilling to give up and is determined to get you back." I found it absurd. Why should a woman's heartache over a fickle, indecisive man be blamed on her? Why must a betrayed woman cry and cling desperately? Why should I long for someone who abandoned me? "Miss Lee, calm down." I can't stay calm. For so many years, I've watched him switch girlfriends one after another. Laura's eyes were filled with helpless despair. I hoped he'd settle down, change his mind, and be faithful. Then, when he proposed to me, I thought I'd finally seen that day. But Veronica, he's settled down. He's learned to be faithful. But it's not with me. It's with you. Chapter 28. It wasn't surprising that I would see Henry again. What surprised me was how much he had changed. He looked thinner, his clothes disheveled, and there was a hint of desolation in his expression. When he saw me come out, he stubbed out his cigarette. "Veronica." Beijing had entered late autumn, and it was already very cold. I wrapped my coat tightly around myself as I looked at him. A long time ago, the Veronica who sat at the edge of a rooftop, legs dangling, thinking that jumping would end it all, was saved by him, no matter what. There was no deep hatred between Henry and me. He wasn't completely a bad person, just spoiled, reckless, and greedy. I've already talked to Laura about breaking off the engagement. You must have heard by now. I haven't been involved with any other girl for over half a year. Luciana was just to make you jealous. I never touched her. Veronica, come back, please. He wore the white shirt I liked, his hair neatly trimmed. He looked like the Henry in my memories, but also not quite. I felt a sense of confusion and sadness. He was supposed to be the proud, Slightly arrogant Henry who looked down on everyone. Not this careful, cautious version of himself. Henry, you need to learn to move forward, to look ahead. Stay with Laura. Don't hurt another innocent person. But Veronica, I don't have any feelings for Laura anymore. The one I love is you. Henry's expression grew increasingly agitated. I'm the one who saved you from the rooftop. You said you'd stay with me for life. Yes. If it weren't for you, I would have been gone long ago. Henry, you saved my life, and I'll remember that forever. I did say I'd stay with you, but I also said this. I will never forgive betrayal, and I'd rather die than be the other woman. I've already broken off the engagement with her. But Henry, it's too late. You love Benjamin now, don't you? You think he can give you what I can't? Do you know that getting into the Chan family is even harder than getting into the Zhao family? And do you really think he's genuine with you? The Liu family's daughter is already discussing marriage with him. Veronica, you're the only one who's still in the dark. I pushed Henry's hand away, taking a step back. Chapter 29. That's my business. Henry, I know what I'm doing, and I know how to move forward and make my choices. Marriage isn't the only path for a woman. What you think is important may mean nothing to me. Don't come looking for me anymore. Just live your own life. I turned and walked away. The late autumn wind chilled me to the bone, but it also made me feel clearer. That night when I got into Benjamin's car, I had already made my choice. I was clear-headed and shameless in my use of him, and I had always reminded myself not to be tempted by the gifts and shortcuts that powerful men casually handed out, because when they grew bored and took away the ladder they used to elevate you, you'd crash to the ground with nothing left. Better to build your own ladder, brick by brick. It might be harder, but at least it would be your own path, and no one could take it from you. But as I reached a crosswalk and waited for the light to change, I suddenly realized my face was wet. I slowly raised my hand to touch it. I didn't know when or why, but tears had silently covered my entire face. Chapter 30. The night Benjamin returned, a light snow fell over Beijing. I insisted on going to the airport to pick him up, but I also vainly wore a thin dress under my coat. As soon as I got to the airport, I took off the coat. It wasn't cold with the heating on. From far away, I saw him. A man focused on his career is always the most attractive. He was dressed in a black business suit, followed by a few assistants and an executive team. The group walking through the airport instantly caught everyone's attention. Benjamin also saw me. He took his coat from an assistant and signaled them not to follow. Then he walked toward me, alone. Benjamin. I waved to him. He wasn't one to smile often, his face usually expressionless. But at that moment, when I waved, I clearly saw the smile in his eyes. He wanted to see me, just like during the half-month he was away. I realized I missed him more than I thought I would. Benjamin draped his coat over my shoulders, then looked down at my feet. Since I wore a dress, I naturally wore pretty high heels. Whether they were warm enough wasn't a priority. He took me to the VIP lounge, then went out on his own. When he returned, he was holding a paper bag. Inside was a pair of fuzzy UGG boots. He'd even thoughtfully bought me a pair of wool socks. Put these on. It's cold outside. I refused. No, they don't match my dress and shoes. Benjamin knelt in front of me, patiently coaxing. A dancer's feet are important. Don't let them freeze. Oh, so you're not worried about me? I said, pretending to be annoyed. Veronica. He seemed helpless. He put the boots down, then leaned in closer to me. I was sitting in a single-seat sofa. He placed his hands on the armrests, trapping me between the back of the sofa and his chest, surrounding me with his presence. His coat was still draped around me, and the room was warm. Sweat gathered at the tip of my nose, and I felt dizzy. He lowered his head and kissed me, and just as I was getting lost in the kiss, I heard him say, "Change your shoes and let's go home, unless you'd prefer to stay here." Home, home, I blurted out. Benjamin kissed me for a while longer before letting me go. Chapter 31. As soon as we got home, I kicked off my boots and wrapped myself around him. Mr. Chan. He remained calm, watching me act mischievously. Do you want to try a dancer? He leaned against the entryway cabinet. desire gradually clouding his eyes. How do we try? I tilted my head to kiss his chin. My ears flushed red, but my words were bold and suggestive. Have you ever seen a dancer practice? Honestly, I regretted it as soon as the words left my mouth. But regret was useless at this point. Benjamin was the kind of man who looked like the picture of self-restraint. But when he was alone with me, he could be the most shameless, the most reckless. My intention was to tease him back, to get revenge for how he'd flirted with me at the airport. But now, it felt like I'd handed a pillow to a sleepy man. In the end, all I could do was weakly beg him to stop. A dancer. Can't go on anymore? I forgot you've been away on business for 2 weeks. Truly, I couldn't have been more foolish. It was like leading a lamb to the slaughter. Chapter 32. 3 days after Benjamin returned from his business trip, Amelia, the Liu family's daughter, suddenly decided to study abroad. It was said that she intended to settle overseas in the future, and the talk of a marriage alliance between the Chan and Liu families was never mentioned again. I knew it wasn't a coincidence. Sure enough, Mrs. Chan soon asked to meet me privately. Miss Su, I'll get straight to the point. Benjamin is our only son, and both his father and I take his future very seriously. I've looked into your background. Miss Su, you come from a clean family, you're hardworking, and you're talented. Our Chan family has no prejudice against background, as long as the girl is of good character. Neither Benjamin's father nor I would oppose it. As for your previous relationship with the Zhao boy, that doesn't matter. After all, times have changed, and I'm not old-fashioned. There's nothing I can't accept. Benjamin likes you very much. I can see that. Mrs. Chan seemed to sigh lightly. You've heard about Amelia, haven't you? The idea of marrying into the Liu family was the elder's plan, but Amelia really liked Benjamin. When Benjamin returned from his trip, he rejected her outright. She was quite heartbroken, and now that she's gone, she won't be coming back. Miss Su, if Benjamin truly can't be without you, his father and I won't oppose it either. But we have only one request. Please, go ahead. I already had an idea of what the request would be. Mrs. Chan was a very smart woman. She didn't insult me, mock me, or try to buy me off to make me leave. She gave me the choice. I'm sure, in her investigation, she'd already learned certain things. She was confident she knew what I would choose. If you want to be with Benjamin, I hope you'll resign from the dance theater, and also, that you won't pursue this career any longer. Dancing requires maintaining a low body fat percentage for long periods, which isn't good for pregnancy and even worse for fetal growth and development. I've seen your medical report. Miss Su, to be honest, your health indicators aren't very good, and you've had depression, haven't you? I nodded lightly. Yes, but I've been off medication for a long time now. Mrs. Chan shook her head. Miss Su, he's our only son, and we hope you can understand our concerns as parents. I know asking you to give up your dream is cruel. If you're willing, I can help you apply for overseas training. And of course, I'll provide you with financial compensation. Mrs. Chan's attitude was sincere. More importantly, what she said wasn't wrong. There was nothing to be angry or resentful about. Mrs. Chan, to be honest, I've also received invitations from several foreign dance companies, but I haven't accepted any of them. Now, I'll reconsider it. You're right. Giving up my dream is too cruel for me. I looked at her, smiling openly. Aside from dancing, I know nothing else. Giving it up is simply impossible. It seems Miss Su has made her choice. I nodded slightly. But Mrs. Chan, I don't need any financial compensation. Benjamin has already helped me a lot. Miss Su, have you thought about this? If you ask for nothing, Mrs. Chan sighed. How could Benjamin possibly let you go so easily? Chapter 33. After meeting with Mrs. Chan, my mood had been poor, having been diagnosed with depression before. I quickly recognized that something was off with my body. I went to my previous doctor for medication, but it didn't seem to help much. Then, during the performance that night, something went wrong. We were performing the ballet Notre Dame de Paris. I played the lead role of Esmeralda. There were many difficult moves. As I spun toward the center of the stage, A sharp pain suddenly shot through my lower abdomen, throwing off my rhythm instantly. Then I fell heavily on the stage. When the ambulance took me to the hospital, I was still bleeding. They rushed me into emergency surgery. The operation didn't take long. By the time Benjamin arrived, I was already in the ward, hooked up to N4. The moment he pushed the door open, my tears broke free. The doctor's words still echoed in my ears. The severe abdominal pain and heavy bleeding were caused by a ruptured uterine fibroid brought on by strenuous activity. It wasn't a miscarriage, as you thought. Moreover, your current physical condition is not suitable for pregnancy, nor is it likely for you to conceive. Miss Sue, you're too thin, and you've likely taken a lot of hormone medications in the past, which has disrupted your body's systems. Of course, if you take proper care of yourself, things will slowly improve. Benjamin took my hand. Veronica, don't be scared. It's all okay now. Benjamin, I called his name weakly. Hold me tight, please. Chapter 34. The day I chose to leave was the day Benjamin was busiest. The company's biggest project was at its most critical point. He couldn't take any time off. I left a letter for Benjamin, instructing his secretary to give it to him only after the project was completed. In the letter, I told him, Benjamin, from the start, I've been using you to escape Henry, to get out from under his control and revenge, using you to get back on stage, to keep dancing. I'm just a shallow, utilitarian woman. In my life, nothing matters except dance and myself. Back in school, when I was being bullied, I clung to Henry as my lifeline. Later, when Henry got engaged, I clung to you. I'm very grateful for all the help you've given me, but that's all it is. I have nothing to offer, and I've already given you all I have. So, we owe each other nothing. We're even now. Chapter 35. Henry once came abroad to find me. I refused to see him. At every one of my performances, he sat in the front row. He sent me countless flowers, but each time, I thought of the performance in Beijing when Benjamin was away on a business trip, yet still sent flowers that filled the entire theater. Now, it's been a whole year since we lost contact. Before Henry returned home, he had someone deliver a letter to me. Veronica, in the past, I despised your dedication to dancing. I mocked your scarred feet from dancing. I ridiculed your career, thinking it was beneath you, just a job to entertain people. I selfishly wanted you to revolve around me, to be mine alone. I arrogantly believed that even if I married, you'd still stay by my side. For people like us, keeping a few women was no big deal, but when you truly left without looking back, I began to feel fear. Veronica, trying to destroy your dream didn't make you stay. Unfortunately, I realized this far too late. Chapter 36. As I read the letter, there was a knock on my dressing room door. Veronica, it was Lily, an Asian colleague from the company. Do you need something? I put the letter away and turned to ask her. Her expression was exaggerated. There's a man looking for you. I thought it was Henry again. I shook my head and sighed. I'm not seeing him. No, it's not that one. My heart skipped a beat. This guy is super handsome. You have no idea. When he showed up, we all just stared. He's got to be about 188 centimeters, right? I've never seen a man look better in a trench coat. And that face. His features are so well defined. Veronica, you don't know, when he came over, Carrie, that coquette, immediately tried to flirt with him. My fingers instinctively clenched. Carrie was an incredibly seductive woman. Any man she set her sights on, she got. Lily paused dramatically. Guess what happened then? How would I know? I said that, but my heart was feeling a bit sour. Benjamin wasn't exactly hard to flirt with, and Carrie was truly gorgeous. Even I thought her figure was unmatched. Lily suddenly burst out laughing. The guy was polite, but he rejected her. She hugged my shoulder, gossiping eagerly. Guess how he rejected her? Tell me or don't. He said, sorry, I have a girlfriend. Veronica, who do you think his girlfriend is? Could it be you? No wonder you turned Mr. Zhao down so many times. But why keep it such a secret? Aren't we best friends? You've been here for a year, and I never knew you had such a handsome boyfriend. He's not my boyfriend. Don't even try to deny it. Lily glared at me indignantly. Your phone's wallpaper is a picture of the two of you. I'm not blind. You know. I didn't know how to explain. It was all true. I was selfish and greedy. I couldn't give up dancing, and I couldn't give him up either. I wasn't willing to abandon dancing for him, but I kept him secretly in my heart, crying over him in the dead of countless nights. Someone like me deserved to end up alone. But Benjamin, why did he come for me? I was selfish and heartless, cold and unfeeling. I left without a word. Benjamin had never wronged me, but how did I repay him? Chapter 37. Veronica, are you crying? So, you still love him, don't you? Go find him. Go see him. Lily urged me repeatedly. I wiped my tears and slowly stood up. I went downstairs, and I saw him immediately, a year apart. He was a bit thinner, his gaze even more steady and aloof. My vision blurred badly. I couldn't see him clearly at all. Veronica. Benjamin's voice reached me across the distance of time. The moment his voice echoed, every defense I'd built crumbled. Without hesitation, I ran to him, crying uncontrollably, without any grace. He opened his arms, as he always had, catching me steadily. Veronica. I hugged him with all my strength. Benjamin, take me home. He didn't answer, just gently lifted my face. Just like that night in the rehearsal room. Exactly the same. Veronica, look at me and say it again. I smiled through my tears, but they fell even harder. I did as he asked. Looking straight at him without blinking, I said loudly, Benjamin, take me home. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it was the remedy for all of Veronica's wounds. He slowly lowered his head, pressing his forehead against mine. Are you going to run again? No more running. This time, can we forget the past? Then I'll make it up to you. How will you make it up to me? I smiled through my tears, my ears reddening. Well, Mr. Chan, do you want to try a dancer again tonight?